Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again and we're going to have a look at yet another collaboration beer. So both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from both of these breweries over the years, in fact, and I'm hoping that this one is as good as some of the other ones we've had from them before, because I know it's a style that both of these breweries are very capable with. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head to Leeds in Yorkshire and we're having a look at another beer from North Brewing Company. So this one is brewed in collaboration with Track Brewing Company, who are from Picadilly in central Manchester. It's simply titled IPA, comes in at 6.8% ABV, and it's a New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. As you may know, both of these breweries are renowned in this particular style. So yeah, this one was released here in Sweden as part of the Tillfällig temporary sortiment on the 20th of April 2021, and I'm hoping that this one is as good as some of the other beers that we've had from these breweries before. So yeah, fingers crossed it's a good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's get cracking then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about both of the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from North Brewing and from Track Brewing, and we will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, quite regularly, of course, when I take trips home to the motherland of Scotland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here then. And as always, we'll start with the home brewery first off. So yeah, North Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Leeds in Yorkshire, and the company was founded by John Ginnell and Christian Townsley, who owned the North Beer Bar, which opened way back in 1997. Very long time in craft beer years. But today these guys operate around 6 venues around the city, and they've been constantly expanding the name of North Brewing Company, which is pretty cool. But apparently North Bar used to work quite closely with the likes of James Clay and Vertigo Drinks to promote craft beer in Yorkshire. As I've mentioned in other English reviews, Yorkshire is a little bit special compared to the rest of England in the sense of craft beer, because it's been going for a very long time there actually compared to other parts of England. So yeah, Stuggy Pickard, Ginger Ale Trail, he's your man to talk to about Yorkshire craft beer. He really knows what's going on there. But this brewery is located in the Taverners Walk Industrial Estate in the city, and it has a 200-person tap room and a 15 BBL brew kit. The brewers at the brewery are Seb Brink, who used to work for Golden Owl, and Darius Darwell, who worked at the Bristol Beer Factory. They've now got a tap room in Sovereign Square in Leeds as well, and they're currently working to renovate a new brewery called Springwell, which has a 21,000 square foot space, and they're going to take their brewing capacity there up to 16,000 hectolitres of beer per year, as well as hosting a 500-person tap room there as well. So that's going to be very, very cool when they open that up, and hopefully I can go there at some stage and visit that when the whole COVID-19 pandemic thing buggers off. I do need to get down to Leeds and have a little look at it, because other beer tubers like Rob Hopsine and Stuggy Pickard and things have been telling me that Leeds is a very, very good beer city. But these guys, as I said to you earlier, are a very well respected brewery in England these days, mainly because of their New England IPAs. They're doing some really, really nice examples of that style, so if you get the chance to try some of these North beers, it is definitely worth it. But as of April 2021, when I'm filming this particular review for you, these guys have produced around 180 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and that number is constantly on the rise. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about North Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's go on to the away side of things. We'll head a little bit west of Leeds over to Manchester this time. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Track Brewing are based in Picadilly in central Manchester, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Sam Dyson. So Sam studied maths and economics at university, and he homebrewed while he was studying because it was a source of cheap beer. But over time he grew very fond of the science of brewing and the creativity it allowed while still having this central process. But after studying, he took a trip on his bike, travelling across 5 continents in 25 different countries, and the first part of this trip was to go across the US, and it was there that he started visiting lots of different tap rooms. But when he returned to England, he went to London and started working in the beer industry before returning home to Manchester. So he rented out an arch on Sheffield Street, very close to Piccadilly Station in Manchester. There's a whole host of different craft beer activities going on around there, so that's definitely worth checking out if you find yourself in Manchester. And there's a lot of food producers and other things in this area as well. But he was joined very early on by Matt Dutton and Will Harris, and they've as a brewery they've since become very, very decorated. Actually, they're doing some really, really good things. And I mean, Track Brewing Company are extremely highly regarded within this New England Hazy IPA category as well, but they do a lot of different styles these days actually as well. What I'm finding is a lot of these New England breweries in England are starting to have a go at different things like black IPAs and imperial stouts and sours and stuff like this too, so very exciting times in the English beer scene at the moment. But they've also got their own tap room a few streets away from the brewery, and as of April 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, they've produced around 135 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But yeah, as I said, a very highly regarded brewery. I would also recommend that you try some of the beer from these guys if you get the chance. I've reviewed maybe 4 or 5 different beers involving this brewery on the channel, so I need to make sure I get that number up. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Track Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. But yeah, if you want to keep more up to date regularly on the English beer scene, then I would recommend my English Beer Tube and Friends. We've got Greg Bullman at Bullman's Beer Reviews, we've got Christoph at Ale Degustations, we've got Stuart Pickard's Ginge Real Ale Trail, we've got Rob Hopsy, we have Peter the Clueless Drinker, we've got Adam at Mersey Beers, we've got Harry at Blue Nose Beer Reviews, we've got Craig at Kent Beer Reviews. I'm just trying to think who I'm missing out. We've got Ollie at Pint Sized, we've got Jake at Jake O Beer. I've probably missed out a few, but there's some really great beer tubers in England these days, so yeah, definitely go and check out some of these guys. There's also Thomas Window Beers as well over in Ireland, who's reviewing Irish beers and quite a few English things as well actually. And I think Danny McFadden, Sofa King Drunk 66, he actually reviews quite a few English beers as well as the Scottish things too. So there's lots of really good reviewers out there reviewing a lot of English stuff. Even the Dutch guys that I've talked about before, they review quite a few English beers as well. So yeah, go and check out the English beer tubers. A lot of really good guys doing things these days. Dean's Beer Reviews as well is another one who didn't pop into my mind right away. But yeah, definitely go and check those guys out if you get the chance. They've got some awesome videos there. But yeah, let's crack on and have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, usual kind of style of artwork from North Brewing Company there. On the back there you can see the North Brewing symbol, and then underneath you have the Track Brewing. Of course they're named Track because they're very close to the railway, and you know, North Brewing Company just after the North Bar, I guess, and because Yorkshire's in the north of England. But yeah, so 6.8% IPA as I mentioned earlier, New England style IPA this one. The hops in this one are Talus, Citra and El Dorado. We've had all of these hops before. Talus is quite a new hop in the market. Of course it's derived from Sabro, quite a bit of pink grapefruit and a few other kind of interesting fruity elements out of it. I think it's about 15% alpha acid, something like that. Citras, we know about 14% alpha acid, lovely kind of mango-y notes and lots of different citrusy elements. El Dorado, I think, comes in about 12 or 13% alpha acid. A little bit of an underrated hop, in my opinion, but it seems to be making a little bit of a comeback these days. But lovely passion fruity and pineapple-y notes out of it from what I remember. It's a lovely hop, that, and there's also a little bit of orange zest in this one as well. So yeah, it says that this one only contains barley and oats, so there's no wheat in this one, which is also quite interesting. So yeah, 440ml can. This one, I think I paid 50 Swedish kroners for this one, which is about €5. That will be about, you know, £4.50 sterling, I guess we can say, and then maybe somewhere in the region of, you know, $5.75, $6 American, just to give those of you watching in different places a bit of a price reference. But let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what it has in store for us. So yeah, I forgot to look as well to see who it was that was importing this one into Sweden beforehand, because that's always quite an interesting thing to know as well. But I have noticed that over the last few months we've been getting a higher frequency of English beers, and I think it's the same importer that's bringing a lot of them in. What you tend to find is that one specific importer will bring in beers from a certain country. Like there is one who brings in a lot of different Russian beers at the moment, which is quite interesting. There's another one that brings in Italian stuff too. So we're quite lucky actually with Systembolaget that we do get a variety of different things from different countries. So yeah, there are of course faults in the system. We'll have an estate monopoly, but I think in fairness we do actually get a decent selection of stuff. So yeah, can't really complain on that, and it is fairly cheap as well. So yeah, you'd probably pay more for this beer actually in England than we've paid for it in Sweden. If not, you'd pay roughly the same. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured, and I've poured maybe about 3/4 of it into the glass, maybe a little bit more. But you can see it's poured with a finger of a frothy, I would actually say perfect white head on this one. It's got a little bit of bumpiness to it, but it's also quite frothy. And in terms of the colour, I would describe this one as being a very kind of bright mango juice colour. It actually looks a little bit brighter on the camera than it does to the naked eye, if you like. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But overall, it looks pretty nice, and there's nothing surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance for a New England IPA. But as I say, I like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices, so a mango juice for me. Remember, the colour of these beers is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. A New England IPA like this is going to undergo a boil of maybe 70 to 90 minutes, something like that. But the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Barrel aging and adjuncts can also affect the colour, but that is not particularly at play in this one, of course. And when it comes to the level of haze in these beers, it's dependent on the yeast, the wheat and the oats. Usually, in a sense, this one, as we said earlier, doesn't have wheat in it. It is just oats, and oats, in my experience, tend to give you a little bit of a little bit more haze than wheat actually, and you can kind of see that in this beer. This one does have an impressive haze level to it for a 6.8%, but it varies from brewery to brewery, of course. Theoretically, as you go up the alcohol scale, you should get more haze because there's more wheat notes, but that's not always the case. But yeah, as I said, nothing overly surprising about the beer in terms of its appearance. Let's take a look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one then. So yeah, that's a really nice smelling beer, I have to say. But I'm not surprised. I mean, I know these breweries fairly well, and it's just nice to get a go at something else from them. I would have thought, though, they would come up with a more creative name than simply IPA, to be honest, though. I would have thought that, but hey-ho. As long as it's good, we can't really moan about the name. Yeah, the aroma, that is very, very nice. So as always, we'll start out with the malty side of things. Straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice, soft, white bready base to it. There's some really nice kind of little bread crusty elements in there as well, which I really like, and you can smell the smoothness of the oats in there. So the oaty character that you get in this one does almost have a little bit of sweetness to it, but the level of breadiness that you have in this beer kind of gives the oats, it kind of gives the impression that the oats are a little bit sort of almost dry and powdery in a sense. So I can really appreciate that about this beer for sure. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting things going on in this one for sure on the malty side of things. But pardon me, I'm just going to say that overall the malty side of this beer, it comes across as very well balanced. As I've told you, in my opinion at least, when it comes to New England IPAs, there's 6 directions. You can take them into the farmhousey regions, you can take them to be more kind of grainy and rye based, oaty and creamy, wheaty and bitey, sort of barley malt leaning and bready, and then you can also have the more kind of brown sugary ones. But quite often these beers will exhibit quite a few different characteristics, and this one to me strikes me as being a bit more oaty, but it also actually has a bit of that kind of typical wheaty bitiness, which is kind of interesting, although you do get a fair bit of yeastiness out of this too actually. So yeah, this is quite an interesting one. But I'm also finding the more that I smell it, the more it kind of sweetens up. So in the middle of the nose you do get a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original sort of butter candy type thing out of this one, which is definitely an interesting proposition, absolutely. So yeah, I can really appreciate that. about this beer for sure. So yeah, as I say, white bready base, nice kind of bit of bread crusty character in there. You can smell the oats and a wee bit of Werther's Original on top. And even though there's not wheat in this one, you can actually smell a little bit of an almost wheaty sort of bitiness out of the beer. So maybe that kind of element that I always talk about as bitiness comes from the yeasty side of things. A bit of food for thought for me going forward there. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, green component first off. It's a big floral beast of a beer, this, and I'm not surprised. But remember, New England IPAs tend to rely more on late hopping rather than early hopping. That's why they're not as bitter. Early hopping, early on in the wort boil, if you add the hops early, that gives you more bitterness, and you've got a progressive trade-off over the course of the wort boil, whereby the bitterness that the hops contribute drops and the flavour and aroma contribution increases. So yeah, New England IPAs tend to rely on more late addition hops with a little bit in the beginning to give you a wee bit of bitterness. But you can kind of smell a lot of that in this beer as well because of the level of juiciness and things. But for me, the green component out of this beer is really very bright. It's got a lovely kind of zesty, grassy character to it as well, right on the front of the nose. But the floral note, I think, dominates the floral note kind of dominates the other side of things that's in there. So yeah, it's got a lovely big sort of floral aromatic side of things, some nice big spicy elements to it, and a kind of grassy zesty characteristic as well. So yeah, the green component of this one I think suits it very, very well, and it sort of builds into the kind of little bit of bitiness that the beer has on the malty yeasty side of things. So yeah, I certainly can appreciate that about this one. So yeah, green component for me also gets a thumbs up. Let's focus on the fruity side of things then, because this beer, as we say, does have an interesting hop profile: Talus, Citra and Eldorado. So yeah, this is definitely interesting in that sense. So for me, there's a lot of that kind of pungenty pink grapefruity element coming out of this one, and that's Talus all the way. You do get a wee bit of that kind of coconutty element underneath the fruits as well though, which is really interesting, and that's the kind of thing. This hop, as I say, as far as I'm aware, Talus is a descendant of Sabro, and that's where it comes from. Sabro is always a big orangey, coconutty sort of thing, but yeah, there's a big pungenty tropical note from this, and Eldorado, Citra and Talus together, that's the reason why you're getting such a big pungent tropical note out of this beer. So there is a bit of that very bright pink grapefruit in there, but you've also got this kind of more pungent passion fruit in there as well. Underneath though, you can definitely smell a few of the kind of softer tropical elements in there. There is definitely some mango, that'll be the Eldorado. It will also be the Citra as well, I would presume. There's one or two little very soft kind of apricot-y notes in there, but you also get a good bit of a kind of citrusy element out of this one too, a little bit of a lemony limey note, and I think that's like most likely to be the kind of Citra. But I do get a wee bit of a kind of lychee kind of quality out of this one too, which again I think would be the Citra. But you know, Talus I think has a few complexities like that in it as well, and I'm not 100% familiar with Talus actually. I would love some of the Swedish breweries over here such as OO or Spike to do like a single hop Talus beer to really introduce that to my palate properly and fully appreciate what it's all about. But yeah, this is it's interesting, this one, when you first smell it, you've got that big pungenty tropical fruit note which builds in, you know, it kind of builds a good bridge with the big green components and the sort of bitiness that the beer has. But the more you smell of it, you start to get a lighter zestiness to it and a slightly oily zestiness, and you also get those kind of softer tropical notes as well. The mangoes, a little bit of apricot, and I do get a wee bit of pineapple as well, which is definitely interesting. So yeah, this is a really interesting beer in terms of its aroma. Definitely take a bit of time and ponder that over, especially if you're not familiar with Talus. But yeah, I think we can have a taste of this one now and just go for it. So that's the rest of the beer in the glass. The can's lined up, so my OCD is happy. Let's crack into this beer then and see how we get on. This one is IPA, inventive name, 6.8% ABV, from North Brewing Company in Leeds in Yorkshire, in collaboration with Track Brewing Co from Picadilly in Manchester, both in the north of England. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, it's actually very different in the flavour in terms of the manner in which it comes out, in a sense, compared to what it gives you in the aroma. It's actually a very smooth and very juicy IPA, this one, which I was not expecting from the aroma. I thought this was going to be a big bitey and, you know, very pungent one, but no, completely different approach. Didn't expect that. To be fair though, when you take it in at the start, it's definitely got a wee kind of zip to it, which I can certainly appreciate. But this beer, I think, is really nicely executed, and to be honest, I wouldn't have expected anything else from either of these breweries, so thumbs up to them. This is a nice one to take over here, actually, because it's quite different. It does feel quite different to a lot of the Swedish things I've been having recently. So yeah, but in some ways, yeah, I should be surprised in a sense because of how bitey it smelled, but you know, when it doesn't have the wheat in it, then maybe that should give it away a little bit. But yeah, I like how this one goes together in that sense. So yeah, this beer has my approval, definitely. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour a bit for you and describe it a wee bit more. So yeah, straight away across the middle of your palate then with this one, you can feel that nice, soft, white bready barley malt base to this one. It's like a soft, fresh kind of white bready quality there. And it's pretty straight shooting in that sense. Yeah, you've got that lovely soft, kind of pale malty, white bready sort of thing to it. And I can really appreciate that about this beer. Absolutely. So yeah, really, really interesting. I do wonder if there is a wee bit of a lager malt or something in this one. There's just something about the kind of almost the fluffiness of the bready flavours in this. It reminds me of a lager malt that I had in a Swedish beer, in fact, and I know there's a few lager breweries in England just now actually, and there's just something about the slight crispness that the bread has in this. It makes me wonder, is there a wee touch of some kind of lager malt in this one? I would be interested to know. But yeah, the bready quality that this beer has as its backbone is really nice. You will get one or two bread crusty elements out of it a little bit later on as you kind of ponder over the taste, but yeah, it is very nice. It is actually a very straight shooting beer, this one, in terms of its malt base, but don't underestimate the importance of the malt base. Having a good malt base is essential to a good beer, at least in my opinion. But yeah, down the kind of middle line of your palate, and it kind of spreads out a little bit, that's where you get the lovely kind of smooth oatiness in this one. It's definitely not as kind of powdery in a sense as it comes across as being in the aroma, but it does develop a little bit of that sweetness the further you go into the aftertaste too. In the very centre of your palate, you get a wee bit of a you get a little bit of a sort of Werther's Original kind of, you know, sort of that butter candy type flavour there, and that's the alcohol flavour, of course, as well in this one. The beer doesn't strike me as if it's got, you know, like a bit of Maris Otter or something in it to give you that sweetness. It does strike me as if that flavour would be purely kind of from the alcohol in a sense, but could be wrong on that. And I mean, it's 6.8%. It's not the highest alcohol one that you're going to come across, but the standard percentage for IPAs over here in Sweden is 6.5. Pretty much nearly everyone brews these New England IPAs to 6.5%. I think that's because of what Stigbergets and OO Brewing did back in the day. So it's either 6. A lot of beers in Sweden you will find are 6% or 6.5% or 8%. The IPAs at least, and that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, I certainly like that about this beer. But yeah, the smoothness that you get in the middle of the palate in this one is very, very nice. But yeah, let's go on to the back third of the palate then. So in that border region between middle third, back third of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of a kind of doughy, bready build up there, and a wee bit of bread crust kind of sitting on top of it. On the back third of your palate, there's a nice kind of lighter bit there. You can feel there's one or two more kind of grainy elements under there, but it's still quite a soft white bready character, although it does give you the impression of a little bit of a wholemeally bready thing too, which is interesting. But on top of that, you get the more airy, yeasty flavours coming out of this one, and the flavour feels just a little bit taller on that back third of your palate. So as you go further forward, as you move further forward on this beer, you can feel that flavour just condenses down a little bit, and as you reach the border region, it condenses down quite a lot, and then the middle third of your palate is a little bit more highly condensed as you go further forward. But as I say, the malt base, it's the smoothness in the malt base in this one that really strikes me. I really like that about this beer. It's a little bit, it is in a sense like a very slightly creamier version of, you know, like Amazing Haze or Narangi or something like that for the Swedish viewers. It's very like that, in my opinion, just a little bit more kind of creamy in a sense. So yeah, but quite an old school New England IPA, this one, in that sense. Not like some of the big sweet ones you're getting today. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there is a wee touch of earthiness to this one, and as you move further forward, it does develop a little bit of a herbal quality, but it's got a really nice kind of, it's got quite a bright floral aromaticity to it, but it's not overly kind of big and spicy or anything like that. The aroma gives you the impression that it's going to be a lot more pungent than it actually is. But it comes across as actually really quite smooth and just very slightly kind of resonating. So yeah, it goes together very nicely in a sense, this one. I really like how all of that goes together. So yeah. But yeah, the other thing to remember is this beer might have been sitting for a few weeks while it's come over from England. But I think that we do get the English beers and stuff pretty fresh these days over here. So I don't think there's a freshness issue here, but maybe some of the green component has kind of relaxed a little bit, I would say, but we never know. But yeah, round the front curve of the palate in this beer, you do get a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing. There is a wee bit of zestiness to it, but it's more kind of fresh. It just feels a little bit more kind of fresh and grassy rather than being really zesty and kind of punchy in a sense. So I can appreciate that about this beer as well. Absolutely. It's just the green component of this one isn't too in your face. It's just nice and it feels kind of fresh and bright actually, and that fits in with the sort of relaxed vibe I would say that this beer has. But yeah, fruity side of things then. So border region between middle third and front third of your palate, again you can feel a little bit of that slightly doughy bready build up. There's a little bit of a say kind of bread crusty element coming out of this one, which I can really appreciate. And then the base of that front third of your palate is kind of smooth and oaty, but with a bit of that kind of lovely white bready character as well. As I always say, on that front third of your palate, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And again, I can really appreciate how that goes together in this beer too. So yeah, fruity side of things is overwhelmingly just soft and juicy in this case. I thought it was going to be a little bit more kind of pungent and things, but it works really well. So at the back of the front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of that more. You get the kind of nice bright and juicy grapefruit, pink grapefruit, and you get that passion fruity note there, but they're all very soft actually in a sense, so it comes across as really juicy. You can feel the El Dorado, the Citra, and the Talus all doing their thing there. And yeah, as you move further forward, in this case, you can really feel the mangoes start to come out of it a little bit more. You start to get a few apricot-y elements to it. And yeah, there is a wee bit of pineapple in there as well, which is really, really interesting. So the back half of that front third of your palate, the more tropical side, is really interesting. But as you shift on to the kind of front part of your the front half of that front third of your tongue, it does develop a bit of a kind of lemon limey sort of thing, which is the more kind of citrusy zesty part of the citra hop actually. And there are one or two little lychee kind of flavours sitting under there as well, which is interesting too. So yeah, this beer's got a lovely soft kind of tropical note to it. And I'm just surprised that it's not a little bit more kind of punchy in that sense, just because of the aroma. But yeah, definitely a little bit of a more oily lemon limey quality on the front part of your palate, and a good little bit of lychee under there as well. But an interesting beer, definitely this one, and you can just get a lovely little bit of zestiness from the grassiness behind the front tip of your tongue too. So I can certainly appreciate how this beer goes about its business. It gets a big thumbs up from me actually. So well done to both North Brewing Company and Track Brewing for this one. I think they've pulled off a solid IPA there with this one, but would we expect any less? I don't think so. But yeah, let's round off the tasting section then with the mouthfeel. Definitely a mid-bodied beer, very smooth carbonation, absolutely. I mean, it has a wee bit of slickness and oiliness to it as well, which I think suits it, but bit of an underlying creaminess, which I think also works very, very well for it. But then in terms of the hoppy bitterness and things, I think this is actually very low bitterness. I think this is about 20-25 IBUs. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's even less, to be honest with you. But yeah, it is a very soft, oaty leaning, and just very, very slightly kind of bitey IPA. But the floral notes you get out of this are very, very nice. But yeah, on the malty side of things, as I say, it is very, very smooth. It develops a little bit of a kind of sweetness to it as well. You do get a wee touch of that sweetness in the middle of the palate, but overall I would say it's quite smooth and bready. It's the oats and the soft white bread that come out of this one. Then the fruits got a wee bit of zestiness to it, as I say, a little bit of a kind of lemon limey character, but the soft tropical fruits in this are very, very nice. And you know, the further you go into the aftertaste, you do get just a little hint of that kind of coconutty thing out of the beer too, which is the sort of remnants of Sabro within the Talus hop. But yeah, solid beer, this one, and I'm glad that I picked this one up, because I very nearly didn't get this actually, but I'm glad that I decided to. It was about time to do another English review on the channel. But yeah, I think we can leave the review at that for this one. So yeah, this was the IPA, 6.8% ABV New England IPA from North Brewing Company in Leeds and Yorkshire, in collaboration with Track Brewing Company from Picadilly in Manchester. Both very highly regarded New England IPA breweries, and they've produced a really solid beer here as well. So if you're watching in Sweden where this beer is available, definitely pick it up, and if you see it anywhere else, then I think you'll enjoy this one as well. Quite a little bit more of an old school oaty leaning and very smooth New England IPA in my mind. So I enjoyed it. Quite different from the Aroma, but it really works. It's a very nicely executed beer, this one. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from North Brewing and from Track Brewing. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future, probably when I go back home to the motherland of Scotland. But if you want to see more reviews from these guys, do check out my friends in the English beer tubing community. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Check out my social media, check out these breweries, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, skull, cheers, and see you in the next review.